Hello everyone and welcome back. I'm your host, Elias Arantopoulos. Interactive hotspots are common interface elements in digital magazines, EPUBs, and other digital mediums. They provide contextual help in a non-invasive way, which leads readers deeper into your content. And so in this Adobe InDesign CC tutorial, we will create such an experience for your next EPUB. So inside Adobe InDesign CC, and with the EPUB Creative Interactive Hotspots file open, files that I'm sharing with you at the bottom of the video description, what we have here is actually a painting from the Louvre Museum describing a story that took place in 1814 as the defense of Paris. And that's a great example to create hotspots to provide contextual help in a non-invasive way and lead readers deeper into your content. So the first step is to set up our InDesign document by converting objects into buttons for the interactive hotspots. And as you can see under the layers panel here and under the contents layer, I have 3 triggers because I have 3 hotspots. And I would like to point out that each of these triggers have an empty frame around it. So users have more real estate around the hotspot button to tap on. So I'm going to target the first trigger here, and I'm going to convert this into a button. And I'm going to do this inside the Buttons and Forms panel. So go ahead and click on the Convert to button here. It's going to give us this generic name, which I'm going to rename this to something more relevant. Let's say Trigger 1. And it's always a good idea to actually name your buttons because you just never know how complex things might get later on. Okay, so we got the first trigger. Now we're on to the second trigger. Again, I'm going to rename this to Trigger 2. And for the third one, that would be Trigger 3. We will do the same thing for the hotspots. We're going to convert each of these hotspots into a button. So go ahead and do that. This time we're going to rename this to Hotspot 1. Just going to copy this. This is going to be the second hotspot. And lastly, we have the third hotspot, like so. Okay. So basically, everything has been converted into a button. And now we're ready to move on to the next part and work on the interactivity for our EPUB. So in order to create the interactive hotspots inside our EPUB, there are a couple of ways you can approach this. One is with the creation of series of 2 multi-state objects or with the use of show, hide buttons and forms. And that's the way I will follow this time around, so we learn a new technique. So the first thing we need to do is we need to give the trigger buttons an action. So when the trigger buttons are tapped, the information gets revealed. So I'm going to target the first trigger button here. And inside the buttons and forms, I'm going to create a new action. So click to create a new action. And the action will be show, hide buttons and forms action. And under the visibility, trigger 1 will not be visible, but hotspot 1 will be visible. Okay, let's do the same thing for the trigger 2. Add a new action, show, hide buttons and forms action. And the trigger 2 will not be visible, but the hotspot 2 will be visible. Let's do the same thing for the trigger 3 button. Add a new action, show, hide buttons and forms action. And under the visibility, trigger 3 will not be visible, but hotspot 3 will be visible. Okay. All right. Now, the hotspots also need to have an action. So when the user taps or clicks, the information disappears. So we're going to target the hotspot 1 here. We're going to give it an action, and that will be the show, hide buttons and forms action. And under the visibility, the hotspot 1 will not be visible until it's triggered. So hidden until triggered must be checked on, but the trigger 1 will be visible. Okay, let's do something similar to the hotspot 2. Add a new action that will be show hide buttons and forms, and under the visibility, hotspot 2 will not be visible until triggered. Okay, but the trigger 2 will be visible. And lastly, we have this hotspot 3. Add a new action, show hide buttons and forms. And under the visibility, the hotspot 3 will not be visible until it's triggered. Okay, so hidden until triggered, but the trigger 3 will be visible. Okay, so let's go ahead and test our work. So click on the EPUB Interactivity Preview panel here. And let's see, with the Set Preview Spread mode, go ahead and click on the Play Preview button. Here's our preview. So you can click or tap on the hotspot. Here's the first one. Here's the second one. Here's the third one. We can also click to collapse them, and so on. So as you can see, this is a great way to create interactive hotspots for your EPUB and engage readers deeper into your content. Now inside the iPad, I have already exported the InDesign document as an EPUB. So let's go ahead and test that. So we have the 3 hotspots. So tap on the first one, let's say. The information gets revealed, and when you tap back, the information disappears. That works for the rest of the hotspots, like so. Thank you for spending time with me. Let me know if you have any questions below the comments section. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel and share the knowledge.